I spent months bringing my late dad's old motorcycle back to life. One morning, I stepped outside and saw it tipped over, deep scratches gouged right into the frame. My neighbor's kid, Caleb, just grinned and said, "It's just a bike." Said it looked old anyway. I didn't respond. Just turned and walked off without saying a word. The next day, something important of his turned up missing, but we'll get to that. I'm 38 years old, a mechanic born and raised in Knoxville, Tennessee. I've never lived anywhere else. My dad passed 2 years back. Heart attack took him down quick. He was the quiet type, a man who believed in working hard, fixing what's broken, and only speaking when it mattered. He didn't leave behind much. No big estate or piles of money. But he did leave me one thing that meant the world to me: his old motorcycle. It was a 1965 Triumph Bonneville. I remembered it from when I was a boy. Sundays, he'd roll it out of the garage and shine it like it was a damn sports car. After Mom passed, he quit riding. Just covered it with a tarp and left it to gather dust and rust. The metal started pitting, the seats started cracking, it sat forgotten. When he died, I decided that bike would be my project. It felt like the only piece of him I had left. I cleared out the garage, set up a workbench, and started working on it bit by bit. I'd spend my days wrenching at the shop, then come home and dive into that bike at night. Stripped it down to the frame, ordered parts online, sanded off years of corrosion, and gave it a fresh coat of deep British racing green, same color it had when it rolled off the line. Took me half a year to finish. By the time it was done, it wasn't just a motorcycle anymore. It had become my way of processing grief, a way of holding on to my dad. I finished it in October. It looked damn near perfect. Roads smoother than ever. When the weather was nice, I'd park it out front and just sit on the porch, drinking coffee and thinking about all the times my dad rode that bike. Made me feel like he was still close. Then one morning, I stepped out with my mug in hand and saw it lying on its side. Kickstand snapped. The gas tank was gashed with 2 nasty scrapes right across the Triumph logo. The grip on the handlebar was torn halfway off. The mirror swung loose, barely hanging on, spinning gently in the breeze. I didn't say anything. Just stood there, frozen, with my chest tightening like a vice. That's when I heard someone chuckling. I turned and spotted Caleb, my neighbor's teenage son, parked on their porch, casually bouncing a tennis ball off the siding like a little punk. He smirked and said, "It's just a bike. Looked old anyway." I kept my mouth shut. Didn't march over there. Didn't scream. Didn't throw punches. I walked over, gently lifted the bike upright, and rolled it back into the garage. Locked the door behind me and stared at the damage. I stayed in that garage nearly the whole day, just trying to keep it together. My hands were trembling. I felt like throwing something, smashing something. But I didn't. Instead, I made a quiet decision. Next morning, I was back out on the porch with my coffee. Caleb strolled out in a tank top and pajama pants, yawning as he made his way to his dad's shiny 2023 Dodge Charger. That car was their pride and joy, always spotless, waxed to a shine, parked miles away from other cars at the store. But something was off. It sat lopsided. All 4 wheels were gone. That Charger was perched on 4 scuffed-up cinder blocks, the wheel wells gaping empty. The brake rotors were resting in the grass nearby, like whoever did it had all the time in the world. That someone was me. I pulled it off before sunrise, quiet, clean, no damage done. Just a surgical removal of 4 wheels by someone who knew what they were doing. Sold the set to a guy I trusted within the hour. Cash deal. No names. No questions. Caleb just stood there, stunned. Then he turned and looked straight at me. I didn't say a word. He stormed across the yard yelling, "You think this is funny?" I looked him square in the eye and said, "It's just a car. Looked new anyway." He clenched his fists like he wanted to swing on me, but he didn't. Later that night, his dad came home and completely lost it. I could hear him shouting through the walls, words like, "Police, insurance fraud," and "Useless little punk," echoing down the block. But nobody came knocking on my door. They knew they had no proof. The security camera on their garage? I already knew it didn't work. Caleb bragged months earlier about how his old man wouldn't pay for cloud storage. I remembered every cocky word. But I wasn't finished yet. Caleb didn't just mess up my bike. He insulted the memory of my father. So I kept an eye on him. Wasn't hard, kid was careless. Every Saturday night, around 11:30, he'd sneak out, take his mom's Highlander, and head downtown to party with his friends. He wasn't legal to drink, but that didn't stop him. I followed him. Parked nearby, took photos from across the street, him drinking, laughing, passing a joint, all over some girl. Every week, I added more to my little folder. I wasn't stalking him. I was gathering evidence. After 3 weeks, I had plenty. I loaded everything onto a flash drive, labeled it Caleb's Nights, and slipped it into their mailbox just after sunrise. By noon, their house was in full meltdown mode. His dad's voice carried down the block. "This is what we raised you for? Driving drunk? In our car, Caleb?" The kid didn't come outside again that day. 2 nights later, I heard a noise outside around 2 a.m. I was in the kitchen, radio playing low, when I heard metal scraping. Peeked out and saw Caleb trying to wedge a crowbar into the side door of my garage. I stepped outside quietly, came up behind him, and said, "You better think real hard about what happens next." He nearly jumped out of his skin and bolted down the driveway, didn't say a word. I didn't call the police. Instead, I rang up my cousin Dylan. He works warehouse security out in Oak Ridge now, but back in his 20s, he ran with a rougher crowd. He's settled down these days, family, kids, legit job, but a favor's a favor. I asked for something simple. Told him I needed a junk motorcycle frame. Something that looked burned up or totaled. Said I'd pay. 2 days later, he rolled up with the charred frame of a Suzuki that had gone up in a garage fire. We stripped it further, painted it the same deep green as my Bonneville, bent the metal to look like a crash, and wrapped a grimy rag around the handlebars. Then I added a picture. We found Caleb passed out behind some bar, flat on his back in the grass with puke by his shoes. Drunk as a skunk. Barely breathing through his mouth. We boxed everything up, what we'd made, and left it on his porch around 4 a.m. He opened it just after sunrise, maybe 6:30. I watched it unfold through the curtains like a silent little movie. He stared into the box for a good 3 seconds before stumbling backward and throwing up into the bushes. Didn't scream. Didn't run. Just lost his breakfast right there on the lawn. His parents didn't ask questions. They just stood there looking pale and confused, like they'd seen something they couldn't explain. Or didn't want to. As for Caleb? He disappeared for 3 days. No school. No friends dropping by. No basketball bouncing in their driveway. No cocky grins or smart-ass comments across the fence. It got quiet. Unnaturally quiet. He pulled down the blinds in every window like he thought someone was watching. And the truth was, I was. I kept tabs on him, because I've been around long enough to know, boys like that don't just go away. They stew. They seethe. They plot. He was humiliated. Scared. And worst of all, cornered. And a cornered animal? That's when they get dangerous. A week passed. Then 2. One Friday night, right around 10, I caught the faint smell of smoke. I was out in the garage, elbows deep in a carburetor rebuild, just wrapping up for the night. At first, I thought maybe someone nearby was burning trash. But this wasn't leaves or paper. This was different. Acrid. Bitter. Plastic. Rubber. I dropped the wrench and stepped outside. That's when I saw it, my backyard shed glowing like a bonfire, flames curling along the walls, thick black smoke twisting into the night sky. Didn't think. Didn't hesitate. I just ran. Grabbed the garden hose and went to work, spraying everything I could while screaming into the phone for 911. By the time the fire truck rolled up, half the shed was gone. Tools I'd collected over 2 decades, burned up or twisted into molten lumps. The fire captain gave me some line about faulty wiring. I told him that was crap. That shed didn't have a single live wire in it. I knew what it was. Arson. But knowing it and proving it? That's 2 very different things. I could have told the cops about Caleb. I had the photos. The logs. The motive. But I didn't. Because this wasn't about pressing charges. This was war now. And when I go to war, I don't bring lawyers. I don't call backup. I go in quiet. I go in deep. 2 mornings later, I spotted Caleb for the first time since the package. He was standing on their porch, twitchy and nervous, pacing back and forth like a stray dog. His eyes kept scanning the street like he expected someone to jump out from the shadows. He wasn't wrong. I waited 2 days. Let him twist in that fear. Then I made my next move. I'd noticed something. Caleb didn't have his phone anymore. Word around the neighborhood was his parents took it after the whole drunk and missing wheels episode. But I'd seen him using the family laptop on their porch. Probably thought he was being sneaky. He wasn't. I remembered something from when I first moved in, the Wi-Fi password. They'd written it down on a sticky note back then, Govil S22. Never changed it. So I got in. Dropped a keylogger into their network, nothing fancy. Just something to record keystrokes. And just like that, I had access to everything Caleb typed. Turns out he'd been messaging some girl from his old school. Bragging about what he'd done. Said he? Taught the old man a lesson. Said I? Deserved the fire. Laughed about it. Even called it badass. That was all I needed. I printed every chat log. Highlighted the key parts in bright yellow. Stuck it all in a plain envelope and walked it next door. Didn't take it to the cops. Not yet. I had a better idea. Sunday afternoon, Caleb's dad was mowing the lawn. Just another suburban weekend like nothing was wrong. I strolled up, handed him the envelope, and said, "You're gonna want to read this." Then I turned around and walked home. No more words needed. 10 minutes later, the shouting started. Louder than before. Things crashing. Caleb yelling that it wasn't fair. His mom sobbing. Doors slamming. I stayed inside and let it all burn. The next morning, the Highlander was gone. So was Caleb. I figured maybe they'd sent him off to stay with family. Some fresh start punishment. But that wasn't it. Not even close. 3 days later, I got a knock at the shop. 2 guys in stiff suits, insurance fraud investigators. Started asking questions about a claim Caleb's dad filed months back. Something about a missing catalytic converter on the Dodge Charger. Apparently, the part serial number popped up in a police auction, on a car I'd worked on for a friend. Now here's the thing, I didn't steal it. Didn't even know it was hot. I bought it secondhand, no questions asked. Like I've done 100 times over the years. But now my name was in a report. Which meant heat. Legal heat. Caleb had dropped my name. Told his dad where I sold the Charger's wheels. Ratted me out to save his own skin. That little bastard had flipped the whole script. Suddenly, I was the bad guy. My name, my shop smeared. And for me? That was unforgivable. He didn't just light my shed on fire. He came for the one thing I took pride in, my reputation. So I lawyered up. Spent a pile of money I didn't really have. Dug through receipts, called past clients, made sure every screw and gasket in my shop was accounted for. Took a few weeks, but I got cleared. No charges. Just a warning. Still, the stink of it lingered. Because Caleb? He'd made me look dirty. Made folks doubt me. And that was his biggest mistake. See, he thought the fire was his grand finale. He thought calling in the feds was checkmate. But what he didn't know, what he couldn't even begin to understand, was that I'd only just started. I stopped playing defense. Started building something he couldn't walk away from. Not with his name. Not with his reputation. Not with his ego intact. After the investigator visit, I went quiet. Didn't say Caleb's name. Let the rumors swirl around town. He finally got what was coming. Guess he messed with the wrong guy. I let it all simmer. Because the best revenge? It doesn't come quick. It comes when they think they've already won. So I spent those weeks doing 2 things, clearing my name on paper, and learning everything I could about where Caleb went. Didn't take long. Turns out they didn't send him to family. They sent him to Pathway Recovery Academy, about 90 minutes outside Knoxville. Residential disciplinary program for troubled youth. Basically a reform school wrapped in a Bible verse. Locked gates. Morning prayer. Cold showers and shame. Run by some self-righteous pastor. No state oversight. All hush-hush. You won't find it on Google Maps. But I found it. Turns out an old contact of mine, Troy, used to do electrical work with me back in my engine rebuild days, was now doing security installations for private institutions. Places like Pathway. I gave him a call. Said I was thinking about upgrading my garage with some discreet surveillance. But what I really needed was eyes on a location. Just still photos. Nothing shady. He owed me, and he knew it. 2 weeks later, I had what I wanted. Camera stills. Caleb in uniform, some stiff khaki getup with a name badge. Buzz cut. Pale. Empty eyes. Carrying a Bible like it weighed 100 pounds. It was perfect. Because the thing about places like Pathway? They've got rules, strict ones. No phones. No girls. No smoking. No contact with the outside world. That was the rulebook at Pathway. And Caleb? He was already breaking it. Troy's cousin worked groundskeeping there. I slipped him $300 cash for a phone dump. Worth every penny. I found pictures of Caleb sneaking behind the kitchen, vape in hand. Found his fake Instagram, too. Messaging 2 girls, one of them just 17. He thought he was untouchable. Invisible. He wasn't. I took every photo, every message, every timestamp, and made 2 neat little packets. One went to the director of the academy. The other I mailed, nice and anonymous, to the father of the underage girl Caleb had been chatting up. Then I waited. 3 days later, the whole thing blew wide open. The director called Caleb's parents. Not long after that, the girl's dad posted screenshots all over Facebook, tagged the school and wrote, "This is who you're sheltering?" Boom. That was it. Parents started yanking their kids from the program. A private investigator showed up. Donors backed out. And Caleb? Expelled. Just like that. He was back in Knoxville, but he didn't come home. His parents sent him to live with his uncle on the east side, the one with the crooked porch and 5 roommates. Looked like a hard lesson from the outside. But I knew Caleb too well. That cocky little grin was still hiding somewhere under the surface. That. You didn't beat me. Look. So I kept going. He picked up a job at a tire shop out on Asheville Highway. Real bottom barrel stuff. Cash only. I rolled in one afternoon for an oil change, just to see him. He was thinner, pale, hair growing out weird. But the fire in his eyes? Still there. He spotted me in the waiting room and didn't say a word. But his jaw clenched. Good. That meant he remembered. Later that night, I parked across the street. Watched him walk to the bus stop like he always did. Only this time, he didn't make it home with his backpack. A guy on a bike zipped past and yanked it clean off him. Didn't hurt him. Just took it and dropped it where I said to. Inside the bag? His ID. His work papers. And that little black notebook he kept stashed away, his side hustle ledger. Turns out Caleb wasn't just changing tires. He'd been flipping used rims from junkyards. Under the table. No permits. No receipts. No taxes. I scanned it all, names, prices, dates. Then I sent it to his boss. No name, just an anonymous tip. Next morning, Caleb got canned on the spot. No warning. No check. Just get out. He tried to get another job, but with no ID, no referrals, and that reputation trailing behind him, nobody would touch him. By the end of the week, he was stuck on his uncle's couch, begging strangers online for cash. I watched it all happen. Still wasn't done. Because this was just the slow bleed. The real hit was still coming. And when it landed, he'd feel it in the pit of his stomach. Deep. Personal. Permanent. See, I'd been doing more than just collecting proof and messages. I'd been looking into his dad. Dug through county records, bankruptcy filings, loan histories. Turned out back in 2015, the guy went bankrupt. Rebuilt, sure, but still shaky. And here's the kicker, he'd co-signed a private loan to pay for that fancy reform school. Guess who it was in Caleb's name for? And guess who was behind on payments? That's when I called in a favor. I had a buddy who runs a lien service. I asked him to file a claim against their Dodge Charger for unpaid custom work, stuff I supposedly did last year. Performance exhaust, ECU tuning. All fake. But I had receipts. Paper looked clean. That claim held up the car's title. The bank freaked out. Without a clean title, they couldn't process the loan. 3 weeks later, the Charger was hooked up and hauled off right from their driveway. I watched it happen. His mom on the porch crying. His dad silent, just standing there. Caleb was inside, watching from behind the curtain. I figured that would be the final nail. But I was wrong. That night, around 10:30, there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole, and there he was. No swagger. No smirk. Just a hollow-eyed kid who hadn't slept in days. Shoulders slumped like the weight of it all had finally crushed him. I opened the door. Didn't say a word. He just stared. Then muttered, "I get it." I didn't respond. He looked down, then back up. "You win, all right? I don't even know who I am anymore." That one hit different. He looked broken. Really broken. But it didn't change what he'd done. I stepped out, shut the door behind me. "I told you," I said. "That bike wasn't just a bike." He nodded. Quiet. Still. "You mocked my father." "I was just a stupid kid," he said, voice cracking. "You're still a stupid kid," I said. "But now you understand consequences." He flinched like he thought I was gonna swing on him. But I didn't. "I don't want your apology," I told him. "And I don't forgive you." Then I turned and walked back inside. I locked the door behind me. Watched him through the blinds as he just stood there for a second, then turned and disappeared into the dark. I figured that was it. The end. But karma had one more card to play. About a month later, I got a letter in the mail, from a law office. At first, I thought maybe it was about the lien, or something related to the Charger mess. But no. Turned out Caleb's uncle had been arrested. Busted for running an illegal parts resale operation. Stolen rims, stripped vents, dirty deals, the whole 9 yards. And Caleb? He'd been right there in it. Back when he was working that tire shop job, he was moving stolen parts under the table. Quiet. Regular. 4 months. And that notebook I'd swiped? The one with the handwritten lists? It turned out to be key evidence in the case. It wasn't just some punk kid getting fired anymore. He was facing real charges. Possession of stolen property. Fraud. Tampering with evidence. He was 17 when it started, but 18 when they booked him. Tried as an adult. He got 9 months in county. 3 years probation. It made the local paper. I read the article 3 times. Then I folded it up and slid it into the bottom drawer of my tool chest, right under the seat of Dad's old Triumph. The bike still runs like new. Took it out the next morning, cruised the back roads my dad used to ride when I was a kid. Wind in my face, just like old times. And for the first time in a while, I didn't think about Caleb. Or revenge. Or any of it. I thought about my father. About what he might have done. Maybe not the whole thing. Maybe not as far as I went. But he would have understood. That much I know. Because when someone spits on what you love, when they laugh at it while you're standing right there, you don't just shrug and walk away. You make them understand. You show them what it feels like. That's what I did with Caleb. I taught him. And now? Now he remembers. Every time he hears a motorcycle rumble by. Every time he passes a tire shop. Every time someone says the word respect. He remembers me. But more than that, he remembers my father. And that right there? That's the part he'll never be able to take back. Not ever again.